Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, November 19th. This is Africa 54.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken talks security and diplomacy in Nigeria. In Kenya, a recycling company provides safe sanitation for residents of informal settlements. And in our entertainment segment, a vintage West African Afrofusion performance.
We begin in West Africa and the visit of the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Speaking on Friday in Nigeria, Blinken said the U.S. will do things differently in helping Africa build infrastructure needs and that too often big international deals were opaque and coercive. In a speech laying out the Biden administration's policy approach to Africa, Blinken said it was time to stop treating the continent as a subject of geopolitics and see it as a major player on its own. He appealed to African leaders to guard against rising extremism, authoritarianism, and corruption. Without mentioning China by name, Blinken said Washington would be transparent and sustainable. Blinken's trip to Nigeria happened days after a judicial panel issued a damning report into the shooting by Nigerian security forces of unarmed demonstrators during anti-police brutality protests in Lagos last year. Some Nigerians have been quick to note that the United States has been reluctant about criticizing their government and an ally in the fight against Islamist militants than rebuking Ethiopia or Sudan. However, Blinken said on Thursday authorities should hold to account Nigerian security forces accused of abuses. His 5-day Africa tour comes as crises in Ethiopia and Sudan are worsening. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Saine reports.
On Wednesday, the same day Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Kenya for his first trip to Africa, security forces opened fire on thousands of anti-coup protesters in the Sudanese capital Khartoum and its twin city of Omdurman, killing at least 15 people. It was the worst day of violence since the military seized power in Sudan on October 25th. The Secretary of State condemned the violence Thursday at his second stop, the Nigerian capital of Abuja.
The military must respect the rights of civilians to assemble peacefully and express their views. And we continue to support the demand of the Sudanese people for the restoration of the civilian-led transition, including the return of Prime Minister Hamdok to office and the immediate release of all of those detained since October 25th.
The coup in Sudan and the fighting in Ethiopia are high on the agenda at each stop of Blinken's 5-day tour. Former Ambassador and Assistant Secretary of State for Africa Johnny Carson told VOA it is a crucial moment for Blinken's trip to the continent and his push with partners for democracy.
Well, the upsurge in military coups d'etats across Africa is very disturbing and very worrying. Democracy is under threat across the continent. But let me say this very clearly, that all of the polling data that we see from reputable organizations like Afrobarometer should suggest strongly that Africans across the continent prefer democratic, constitutionally elected governments.
Blinken arrived in Abuja and headed straight to meet with Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari to reinforce long-standing bilateral ties amid unrest and human rights concerns. Carson told VOA Nigeria is a crucial partner.
But Nigeria is, in fact, Africa's most important country. Largest population, largest democracy, largest economy, largest producer of petroleum products, and a country that is regionally important as a transportation hub, a financial and banking center, a communications node and also has the second largest movie production of the world.
After giving a major speech on U.S. policy toward Africa in Abuja on Friday, Blinken will head to his last stop in Senegal, as Michelle Gavin, senior fellow on Africa at the Council on Foreign Relations, told VOA.
I'm thrilled the Secretary is going to Senegal, which is such an important democratic country, Muslim democracy, island of stability in an increasingly unstable part of the continent.
On Blinken's first stop in Nairobi, he spoke with Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Rachel Omamo, and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta on strong bilateral ties and on efforts to reach a ceasefire in neighboring Ethiopia. Cindy Saine, VOA News.
U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, met Ethiopia's Deputy Prime Minister on Thursday in a bid to revive ceasefire talks as the government gave permission for 369 aid trucks to enter famine-hit Tigray. Feltman and Olusegun Obasanjo, the African Union's High Representative for the Horn of Africa, arrived in Ethiopia on Thursday. The two envoys want the government and rebellious Tigrayan forces and their allies to declare an unconditional ceasefire and allow access for humanitarian aid to areas in northern Ethiopia affected by the fighting. Feltman later met Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekanen. The death toll from a recent attack in the northern Burkina Faso has risen, according to the government. Soraya Ali of Reuters reports.
At least 53 people are believed to have been killed in a weekend attack on a gendarmerie post in Burkina Faso, according to an updated government toll released on Wednesday. It comes as President Roch Kabore responded to a public outcry over the worst strike on security forces in years. The attack near a gold mine in Inyata killed 49 military police officers and 4 civilians, a government spokesperson said, updating a previous estimate of 32 killed. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Burkina Faso's capital on Tuesday over the authorities' failure to curb a 4-year Islamist insurgency that has killed thousands and forced more than 1 million people to flee their homes. They demanded that Kabore resigns for failing to rein in the militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. The personnel stationed at the gendarmerie post had run out of food and been forced to slaughter animals in the vicinity for the past 2 weeks, according to a memo sent by the post commander to his superiors last week and seen by Reuters. In a public address on Wednesday, Kabore said he understood why some citizens were angry about the attack and the circumstances leading up to it.
It cannot be normal these days that the army, which has to be the best organized structure in the country, has such important dysfunction. Dysfunction on food and logistics and others.
According to the government spokesperson, 2 senior security service commanders have already been dismissed.
That was Soraya Ali of Reuters reporting. The suspects in the murder case of a white farmer in South Africa that last year triggered riots and stoked weeks of racial tensions were acquitted on Friday, according to local media. The killing of Brendan Honor, whose body was found tied to a pole at his farm in Free State Province, led to riots in October last year. These were followed by a standoff between white protesters and black counter-protesters from the Marxist economic freedom fighters in Senegal, a central South African town near where the murder took place. Sekola Malesalesa and Sekweje Malamba were acquitted of murder, robbery and theft after Judge Gani Musi declared there was insufficient evidence linking them to the attack. Still in South Africa, thousands of workers disgruntled over low wages and changes to terms and conditions of employment went on strike Friday at companies owned by Walmart-led Massmart Holdings. the South African Commercial Catering and Allied Workers Union, an affiliate of the powerful union COSATU, aligned with the governing African National Congress, said the indefinite strike is expected to draw more than 18,000 members across the country. Speaking to Reuters outside Johannesburg, Marco Store, the regional secretary of the union, said workers are demanding an increase of $32, but Massmart is only offering an increase of $20. The union is also disputing unilateral restructuring and changes to terms and conditions of employment, which includes imposing a 40-hour working week with no premiums. Malawi police on Friday fired tear gas to quell an anti-government protest over alleged corruption and economic mismanagement by President Lazarus Chakwera's administration. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets in the southern city of Blantyre to demand that Chakwera's administration act on its election promises that included creating 1 million jobs and ending hunger. Chakwera in June 2020 unseated former leader Peter Mutharika in a rerun election after he pledged to curb corruption and rebuild the ailing economy. The Spanish Coast Guard on Thursday rescued 38 migrants near the Canary Islands and transported them to Aguinaguin port. The vessel carrying 40 migrants was intercepted by the Coast Guard at sea, who discovered 2 dead upon arrival. 2 others in the group were in a critical condition and were airlifted by helicopter to Las Palmas de Gran Canaria Hospital before the boat docked. The migrants were stranded 115 miles away from Gran Canaria Island. More than 16,000 migrants have made the perilous journey from West Africa to the Canaries archipelago between January and October 31st this year, according to the Spanish government data. That is more than double the number in the equivalent period in 2020. Friday, November 19th, is the World Toilet Day. Each year, the day highlights the importance of sanitation and hygiene to improve public health, gender equality, education, economic development, and environmental protection. This year's theme is Valuing Toilets. According to the latest WHO-UNICEF Joint Monitoring Program report, progress on sanitation and hygiene is badly off track. There are 3.6 billion people currently without safely managed sanitation in the State of the World Sanitation Report. WHO and UNICEF are calling on the governments and their partners to urgently transform sanitation for better health, environment, economies, and societies. The report sets out ways forward under the SDG 6 Global Acceleration Framework, drawing on latest data, evidence, and case studies. A Kenyan recycling company is improving sanitation for residents of Nairobi's informal settlements and turning the waste products into fertilizer for farmers. For this year's World Toilet Day, Brenda Mulinya in Nairobi reports on the work carried out by the recycling firm Saine.
Residents at this cluster of makeshift houses have been using a facility denied to their neighbors, a toilet inside an enclosure and one they can access day and night. It's been a major selling point for the landlady who rents these homes.
Tenants want a facility that has both day and night access to toilets. If they don't get that, they will keep moving until they get what they are looking for.
Anita Mutinda is one of the tenants drawn here by the availability of the sanitation facility. She says it brings peace of mind and saves money.
Life was hard out there because I had to pay 5 shillings every time that I needed to use a public toilet, and it was some distance from the house. Here, I don't have to pay a single cent.
Mukuru kwa Ruben, like many other informal settlements in Kenya's capital, is not connected to a sewerage system. An estimated 60% of the population lives with this lack of sanitation, a major factor causing communicable diseases. Elijah Gashoki is a clinical officer at the Community Health Center.
We start getting water-wash diseases, conjunctivitis, and skin diseases. So there is a need for proper and safe and adequate provision of sanitation.
It is a gap that Sanergy, a company providing sanitation solutions, says it is bridging. Sanergy provides dry toilets that separate liquid and dry waste and also helps with waste management in the informal settlement. Sanergy's Sheila Kibudu says the company believes in not wasting any waste.
On a regular basis, we make sure that we provide a waste management service where all of the sanitation waste generated is then safely removed and transported to our organics recycling factory for processing, along with other forms of organic waste.
The toilet waste is collected daily and mixed with other organic waste from the community. It is then processed at Sanergy's plant on the outskirts of Nairobi and turned into organic fertilizer and other agricultural inputs like high-protein feed for livestock.
One of the biggest challenges farmers are facing today is soil infertility. And so what the organic fertilizer does is that it helps restore the soil fertility, and that way farmers can improve their yields.
Sanergy believes more and more farmers will be served as it keeps the circular economy model of turning trash into useful products going while providing a necessary service. Currently, there are over 5,000 toilets spread across 11 informal settlements areas in Nairobi, serving over 140,000 residents. Brenda Mulinya for VOA News, Nairobi.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the auction of abandoned jets in Nairobi, Kenya. Stay with us.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
High-flying bargain hunters attended a plane auction at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta Airport on Wednesday as abandoned jets were sold off by the Kenya Airports Authority. Rachel Judah reports.
Military Air Force jets on sale for as little as $700 US. That's what was on offer at this unique aircraft sale in Kenya. The Kenya Airports Authority, the KAA, is hoping to sell some 73 aircrafts abandoned at various airports around the country. About 100 would-be buyers watched as the planes, including a Somali Air Force jet, going for as little as $700, went under the hammer. Jaguna David Goy was among them.
One is for business, the car one is for business, the other one for personal use, the jet one is going to be for personal use, and the other one we are going to support Baba for the campaign. We are going to donate one to ODM.
Local media reported that the KAA launched the auction as parking fees for the planes were accumulating and the companies were not paying up. The agency held a similar sale in 2019 as part of a clean-up program.
That was Rachel Judah of Reuters reporting. The courageous journalists honored at the 2021 International Press Freedom Awards showed the increasingly vulnerable state of press freedom around the world. VOA's Julie Tabo has more.
A. Chan Nang is executive director and chief editor of the Democratic Voice of Burma, or DVB. His independent news outlet suffered in the aftermath of Myanmar's military coup when the junta seized power and started cracking down on media. Nang has been in exile in Norway, where DVB now broadcasts via satellite into Burma, also known as Myanmar.
The military have arrested over 100 journalists after the coup in February 2021, and still about 50 people are still being detained in prison,
including more than a dozen of his own journalists. Nang is one of the recipients of the Committee to Protect Journalists 2021 International Press Freedom Awards.
I would rather would think this award will highlight the plight of our journalists on the ground who are in prison, but also who are still struggling to report, risking their life, risking their future.
Also honored are journalists from Belarus, Guatemala, and Mozambique for their reporting at a time of dire conditions for media in their respective countries.
I think that our honorees recognize, and we recognize, that the environment for independent journalism has changed everywhere, including in the United States. The challenges are greater. That period of profound optimism that existed when I started this job 25 years ago, unfortunately, that's no longer the case.
Anastasia Mejia knows firsthand. The Guatemalan journalist was the only reporter covering a protest in her hometown of Joyabay in August of 2020. She was later detained.
I was deprived of my liberty for 36 days. The hearings were postponed in order to delay the process.
A judge ruled that she was not guilty, but Mejia is still afraid.
If I keep talking, they will kill me. They will destroy my family.
Joel Simon says that while he feels guardedly optimistic about the future of journalism, he is also a realist.
The press freedom or freedom of expression is the battle of the information age. And we must prevail, and we must know that we're in a really difficult and prolonged struggle.
As for A. Chan Nang, he also remains in the struggle for press freedom.
I think it's a really bright future. And now, almost more than 10 months after the coup, the military never really able to silence the country and silence the people. And we're getting tons of information from around the country. The first time when I left Burma in 1988, it took 20 years before I could go back to Burma. And my hope is this time around it won't take that long.
Julie Tabo, VOA News.
Voice of America has been hosting live music performances by artists around the world for decades. Today, we go back in time to enjoy one such vintage performance by an Afrofusion band from West Africa. Heather Maxwell presents.
Hello everyone. The Senegalese-based band Sahad and the Natal Patchwork came through Washington, D.C. in 2018. At that time, they were promoting their new album, Jiu. This is the first song they performed for me, Daru.
Dunya duguli una jam ka dunya duguli khus jam no sabi pasri de juge dal dar mo re jaba ya la la bi jala he wala boy bagas ko ya la la khulu ya la be pare ke ne sang binan ñu wajal magati oluri jala be pare ke no sang binan ñu wajal magati ci ni mo gëna gaawé Yes, I.
Thank you, Heather. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.